Tonight, we journey to the rugged coast of Portugal to walk in the footsteps of a man who has spent 80 years listening to the Atlantic. This is the story of the Midnight Fisherman. If you find peace in these travels, please subscribe to the channel and join our community of rest. Let the journey begin. Take a long, slow breath in. Feel the coolness of the air as it enters your lungs and the warmth as you let it go. We are leaving the world of clocks, of phones, and of daylight worries. We are traveling across the ocean to a small wooden house perched on a cliff in Nazaré, Portugal. It is 3 o'clock in the morning. The world is a deep, velvety blue. In the corner of a dimly lit room, an old man named Mateo is beginning his day. Listen to the sound of his heavy wool socks sliding across the smooth wooden floorboards. Swish, swish, swish. The wood is old, and it knows him. It groans softly under his weight, a familiar, comforting sound that echoes in the quiet house. He reaches for his heavy fisherman's trousers, the fabric stiff with the salt of 1,000 voyages. He moves with a slow, deliberate rhythm. There is no rush in this house. He sits on the edge of his bed, and for a moment, he simply listens. He listens to the wind as it brushes against the stone walls. He listens to the distant, rhythmic heartbeat of the Atlantic. He reaches for his boots. They are made of thick, dark leather, worn soft at the ankles. Feel the effort as he pulls them on. Thud, thrum, thud. Mateo walks to the small kitchen. The air here is cooler. He strikes a match. Scritch. The smell of sulfur flares for a second, then vanishes, replaced by the scent of a blue gas flame. He places an old metal pot on the stove. He waits. As the water begins to hum, he looks out the small window. The stars are so bright, they look like salt scattered on a black table. He fills a thermos with coffee. It is dark, thick, and smells of roasted earth and bitter chocolate. He wraps a hand-knitted scarf twice around his neck. Wool that was washed in the sea and dried in the sun. It is heavy, it is warm, it is a shield against the night. He puts on his coat, a heavy yellow canvas that smells of oil and brine. Before he opens the door, he pauses. He takes one last breath of the warm, dry air of his home. Then he turns the brass handle. Click. The cold Atlantic air rushes in to meet him. It is sharp, it is clean, it is awake. He steps over the threshold and out into the night. The journey has begun. Mateo pulls the heavy wooden door shut behind him. Click. The sound of the latch is final, a small signal that the safety of the hearth is now behind him. He stands on the narrow sidewalk of the sitio for a moment, letting his eyes adjust to the deep, indigo shadows. The street is a canyon of whitewashed stone, glowing faintly under the yellow haze of the rare street lamps. He begins to walk. Clack, clack, clack. The sound of his leather soles hitting the calcada, the traditional Portuguese cobblestones, is rhythmic and sharp. Imagine the feeling of those stones beneath your feet. They are uneven, polished smooth by centuries of footsteps, by rain, and by the salt, heavy wind. They are like a mosaic of history, cold and unyielding. To his left, the great stone walls of the sanctuary rise up, disappearing into the swirling mist above. Mateo reaches out a calloused hand and lets his fingers trail along the rough granite as he walks. The stone is damp with the night's dew. It feels ancient, holding the chill of the earth within its belly. He passes a small shrine in a niche in the wall, where a single red candle flickers behind a pane of glass. He watches the flame dance, left, then right. It is a tiny heartbeat in the vastness of the night. The air here is thick. It isn't just air. It's a sea mist that you can almost taste, sharp, metallic, and clean. It clings to Matteo's eyebrows and settles in the wool of his scarf. He breathes it in deeply, feeling the coldness travel all the way down to his chest. The silence of the village is absolute, broken only by the distant, muffled boom of a wave hitting the cliffs 1,000 feet below. It is a low-frequency sound, more of a vibration than a noise. He turns the corner toward the funicular station. A stray cat, the color of smoke, watches him from a stone windowsill. Its eyes are 2 gold coins in the dark. It doesn't move. It simply watches the fisherman pass, 2 creatures of the night sharing a moment of stillness. Matteo nods to the cat, a silent greeting between old neighbors. He reaches the edge of the square where the village ends and the abyss begins. The fog is thicker here, rolling over the cliff edge like slow-motion water. He stands at the top of the world, looking out toward where the ocean should be. He cannot see it, but he feels it. A vast, heavy presence waiting for him in the dark. He turns toward the station light, his boots finding the steady rhythm again. Clack, clack, clack. We are moving closer to the water now, slowly, steadily, into the deep. Matteo reaches the iron gates of the funicular station. The light here is a pale, flickering fluorescent that hums with a low electric buzz. It is the only modern sound in this ancient place. He pushes through the turnstile. Clack, clack. The sound is sharp, echoing off the tiled walls of the station. There, waiting in the shadows, is the cable car. It looks like a small wooden jewel box, tilted at a steep angle, ready to slide down the face of the cliff. He steps inside. The floor of the car is slanted, and the air inside smells deeply of grease, old leather, and the faint, sweet scent of pine cleaner. Matteo finds his usual spot in the corner, a wooden bench that has been worn into a perfect, smooth curve by thousands of journeys. He sits. He places his heavy thermos on the floor between his boots. The car is empty, but he is not lonely. He is simply part of the machinery of the night. Then, the vibration begins. It starts as a deep, metallic groan from somewhere beneath the floorboards. The giant iron pulleys begin to turn, hidden in the mountain's belly. Thrum, thrum, thrum. The car shudders once, then begins to tip forward. We are moving. We are descending. We are leaving the solid ground of the CTO and sliding into the vertical dark. Through the glass, the world begins to tilt. The orange street lamps of the village rise above us, getting smaller and smaller until they look like embers floating in a chimney. To our right, the sheer rock face of the cliff is only inches away. It is a wall of grey shadows, wet with the tears of the Atlantic mist. Matteo watches the reflection of his own face in the glass. He looks at the lines around his eyes, mapped by 60 years of squinting into the sun and the spray. He looks through his own reflection, out into the blackness where the beach should be. The car moves with a slow, hypnotic sway. Sway and slide. Sway and slide. The sound of the wheels on the tracks is a rhythmic click-clack, click-clack, like a clock that has forgotten how to hurry. Halfway down, the car passes the ascending carriage. For 3 seconds, the two cars are side by side. Matteo sees the operator in the other car, a younger man with a sleepy smile. They raise a hand in a silent, slow-motion salute. And then they are gone, pulled back up toward the village while we continue our descent into the brine. As we get lower, the temperature changes. The air leaking through the window frames is no longer mountain crisp. It is heavy and thick. It carries the smell of wet sand, rotting kelp, and the deep, cold mystery of the harbour. The bottom of the cliff is approaching. The lights of the lower town appear, blurry and soft through the fog. The car slows. The brakes let out a long, metallic sigh. Shh. The journey down the mountain is over. The journey on the water is about to begin. Matteo picks up his thermos. He stands. He is ready for the sea. The doors of the funicular slide open, and Matteo steps out onto the lower level of Nazaré. Down here, the ground is different. It is no longer the dry, ancient stone of the clifftop. It is a world of concrete and iron, slick with a fine coating of diesel and salt spray. The air is heavy, almost thick enough to chew. It carries the scent of 1,000 journeys, the metallic tang of fish scales, the sharp bite of boat fuel, and the deep, cold aroma of the harbour basin. Matteo begins the long walk toward the docks. His boots make a different sound here, a flat, hollow echo against the asphalt. Tramp, tramp, tramp. To his right, the massive shadow of the Nazaré Canyon wall looms over him, a black silhouette against the slightly lighter sky. He passes the rows of tractors that were once used to pull the heavy wooden boats from the surf. Now they sit like sleeping iron beasts, their tires encrusted with sand and rust. He touches the cold metal of a fender as he passes, a silent acknowledgement of the hard work that defines this shore. He reaches the edge of the floating docks. The wood of the ramp creaks under his weight. Creak, snap. Below him, the water of the harbour is as black as spilled ink, reflecting the white mast lights of the fleet. The boats are all huddled together, swaying in a slow, collective rhythm. Listen to the music of the harbour. The rhythmic clink, clink, clink of wire rigging against aluminum masts. The soft glug of water trapped between the hulls. It is a restless, metallic lullaby. Matteo finds his boat, the Estrela do Mar, the Star of the Sea. She is a sturdy vessel built of oak and iron, painted in the traditional colours of the coast, a vibrant red hull with a stripe of forest green. He stands on the dock for a moment, just watching her breathe. Every boat has a soul, Matteo believes, and tonight his boat is eager to leave the safety of the harbour. He reaches out and grabs the thick, salt-crusted mooring rope. The rope is rough, like the bark of an old tree. It bites into the calluses of his palms, a familiar sensation that grounds him. He unloops it from the iron cleat with a practiced flick of his wrist. Thwack. The rope falls into the water with a heavy splash. He steps over the gunwale and onto the deck. The boat tips slightly to the left, welcoming his weight. Matteo feels the deck through the soles of his boots. It is wet and slightly tacky with old sea salt. He walks to the center of the vessel and places his hand on the engine housing. The metal is cold, but he knows the fire that lives inside it. He looks up at the sky one last time before starting the motor. The stars are beginning to fade as the first hint of violet touches the eastern horizon. He is home. He is on the water, and the world of the land is 1,000,000 miles away. We are drifting now, away from the pier, into the waiting arms of the Atlantic. Matteo moves to the small cabin, his hand finding the ignition key by touch alone. He turns it, and for a second, there is only the sound of the wind. Then, the engine coughs. It is a deep, guttural sound that vibrates through the deck, up through Matteo's boots, and into his very bones. Chug, 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 vroom. The motor settles into a low, steady purr, a rhythmic heartbeat that will accompany us for the rest of the night. The exhaust sends a small plume of white steam into the cold air, a breath of warmth in the indigo dark. He leaves the engine to warm and walks to the stern. It is time to light the fogachos, the heavy oil lamps that serve as his eyes on the water. He strikes a long wooden match against the underside of his bench. Scritch. The sulfur scent flares, sharp and bright. He touches the flame to the wick. A small blue glow grows into a wide amber bloom of light. The lantern glass is slightly soot-stained, softening the glow until it looks like a fallen piece of the moon resting on the deck. The light spills out across the water, illuminating the swirling mist and the oily surface of the harbour. Matteo stands in the center of this golden circle. Everything outside the light is a mystery, but inside the glow, everything is known. He sees the green nylon of the nets, piled like sleeping serpents in the wooden bins. He sees the silver scales from yesterday's catch, embedded in the cracks of the deck like tiny diamonds. He sees his own hands, illuminated by the flame, hands that are as weathered and reliable as the boat itself. He reaches for a thermos and pours a cup of coffee. The steam rises in a straight ribbon, twisting slowly in the lantern light. He takes a sip. The liquid is hot, almost scalding, and it tastes of dark roasted beans and the faint sweetness of home. It warms him from the inside out, a slow fire spreading through his chest to his fingertips. Around him, other boats are beginning to wake. You can see their lights flickering in the distance like a constellation that has drifted down to the sea. There is no talking between the boats, only the shared language of the engines and the lamps. Matteo feels a deep sense of belonging. He is a single thread in a great ancient tapestry of men and tide. He unties the final bowline. The Estrela du Mar is free. She begins to drift away from the dock, the dark water widening between the wood and the stone. Matteo takes the wheel. The wood is smooth and cool, polished by the grip of his father and his grandfather before him. He steers the boat toward the harbour mouth, where the red and green navigation lights mark the gateway to the Atlantic. Beyond those lights lies the Nazaré Canyon. Beyond those lights lies the infinite. We are moving forward now, slowly, steadily, into the heart of the great blue silence. The red and green lights of the harbour entrance are drawing closer now. Beyond them, the protective stone walls of the pier end, and the raw power of the Atlantic begins. Matteo stands tall at the wheel, his legs braced, feet wide apart. He feels the boat begin to lift. This is the boundary. This is where the shallow water meets the deep, and the ocean tests the resolve of the men who dare to cross it. Even on a calm night, the water here is restless, churning with the energy of the Nazaré canyon hidden beneath. Matteo throttles back the engine, letting the Estrela du Mar hover for a moment. He is watching. He is counting. In Nazaré, they say the sea moves in sets of 7, 6 waves of strength and 1 wave of grace. He watches the dark swells rise up like hills of liquid obsidian. 1. The boat rises, its bow pointing toward the stars, then slides down into the trough with a soft, heavy splash. 2. The spray hits the windshield, a cold, salty kiss that Matteo wipes away with the back of his hand. 3. 4. The rhythm is becoming a part of his own pulse. He waits through the 5th and the 6th, feeling the boat shudder as the heavy water thumps against the hull. Boom, hiss, boom, hiss. Then he sees it, the 7th wave. It is a long, smooth mountain of water, wider and calmer than the rest. It carries the wisdom of the deep. Matteo pushes the throttle forward. The engine growls, a confident, steady roar. The boat climbs the face of the 7th wave, and for a heartbeat, we are suspended at the peak, looking out over a horizon that has no end. We slide down the back of the wave, and suddenly, the world changes. The chop of the harbour mouth is gone. We are now in the open ocean. Here, the swells are long, slow, and rhythmic. The boat no longer fights the water, it dances with it. It is a slow-motion seesaw. Rise and fall, inhale and exhale. The land is now just a thin, flickering line of orange lights behind us. Ahead, there is only the infinite blue-black of the Atlantic. Matteo breathes a sigh of relief, his shoulders dropping an inch. The hardest part of the night is done. He steers the boat further out, toward the deep water where the silver fish run. The air here is different. It's colder, purer, and carries no scent of the shore. It is the smell of the beginning of the world. He reaches for his thermos again, but he doesn't drink. He just holds the warm metal against his palms, watching the way the moonlight shatters across the surface of the swells. You can feel the vastness of the water beneath you now, miles and miles of silent, dark space. The boat feels small, but safe, a tiny spark of human life in the middle of a sleeping giant. The horizon begins to soften, turning from a bruised purple to a faint, glowing rose. The stars are retreating, one by one, into the brightening sky. Matteo stands and stretches his stiff limbs, his joints making a small, dry sound like the cracking of kindling. It is time. He reaches for the line. He feels a heavy, rhythmic tug from the deep, the weight of the Atlantic's gift. He begins to haul, heave and pull, heave and pull. The winch makes a slow, grinding music. Then, the first flash of silver appears beneath the surface. Mackerel shimmering like lost coins in the pre-dawn light. He handles them with a quiet reverence, his hands moving with the grace of a man who knows the value of every life the sea provides. The bin fills with the sound of ice crackling, a clean, sharp sound like breaking glass. The harvest is done. The boat sits lower in the water now, heavy and satisfied. Matteo turns the wheel, pointing the bow back toward the white cliffs of Nazaré. The sun finally breaks over the hills, turning the spray from the bow into a shower of liquid gold. The fort of São Miguel appears on the point, its red walls glowing in the morning light. From this distance, the world of the land looks like a painting, still and peaceful. The journey back is shorter than the journey out. The boat knows the way home. We enter the harbour mouth, crossing the 7 waves one last time. This time, they are gentle, ushering us back to the safety of the stone piers. Matteo moors the Estrela do Mar and steps onto the solid earth. The ground still sways in his mind, a lingering gift from the ocean. He walks back to the funicular, carrying a single beautiful fish wrapped in newspaper for his table. He rises back up the cliff, watching the harbour shrink beneath him. The sea has given, and now it is time for the land to receive him. He enters his small white house in the sitio. The air inside is still and smells of dry herbs and wood smoke. He takes off his heavy coat and his salt-crusted boots. He sits in his high-backed chair by the window. He watches the white foam on the beach far below. From up here, the giant waves are just whispers. His eyes grow heavy. The rhythm of the boat is still in his blood. Rise and fall, rise and fall. He is safe. He is home. The Atlantic will wait for him. He closes his eyes and sinks into a deep, dreamless sleep, wrapped in the silence of the cliffs. Before you drift off with him, remember to subscribe to our channel to join us on our next journey. Sleep now, fisherman. The work is done. Good night.